Hello world, it's Birdo Prey 5 Qapla, and welcome to my review of Star Trek Discovery Season 3, Episode 2, Far From Home. So last week we got the Michael Burnham story. We spent the whole episode with just her and Booker, and she gets up to speed on the future. Of course, the Discovery is nowhere to be found. On today's episode, we get Discovery. They get into the future, and they're alone for 99% of the episode, and they don't know where they are. The problems even begin before the episode even starts. With the previously on Discovery, we get flashbacks from season 2, and they remind us all that Discovery has an autopilot. Okay, they could have gone to the future on autopilot. There was no reason for any crew members to go with them to the future. Also, at the end of the season, it was supposedly a minimal crew staying aboard Discovery, and they're all choosing to go on Discovery just so Michael Burnham doesn't have to go to the future alone. That is the only reason they're going. So what is this minimal crew that went with them? It actually turns out to be 88 people. 88 people gave up their lives to go into the future because they just love Michael Burnham so much. And why is this? Oh, the ship crashed. Okay. 88 people decided to leave their lives behind to go into the future just because Michael Burnham. And what did we learn last week? Michael Burnham didn't have to go into the future. Her suit has autopilot as well. So they could have sent her suit on autopilot to the future. They could have sent Discovery on autopilot to the future, and they could have been done with it. But no, we have to have a show. So after the show actually begins, Discovery comes through the time portal that Michael Burnham had closed. Presumably, we at this point we don't know yet what time they're at, but spoilers, it's a year after Michael Burnham got there. So she had closed the time portal. No matter, they came through a year later, and we are treated to the worst starship crashing scene we've ever seen in Trek. We've seen the Enterprise D crash. We've seen the Vengeance crash in the Beyond movies. We saw Voyager crash in, I think, Timeless. We saw the USS Cerritos crash in Lower Decks just a few weeks ago. And this crash scene is by far the most boring, least emotional, least impactful starship crash scene you will ever see. It was like, when it was over, it's like, is that it? Is that really it? It's over? They're barely an inconvenience. I mean, they crashed into, they searched for a glacier because ice is soft, apparently. The ice would make it easier to crash into than dirt, because ice is softer than dirt in this world. During the crash scene, meanwhile, we're seeing all these asteroids in clouds. And are they really trying to tell us that asteroids are in clouds? And yes, they are. After the ship crashes, when they zoom out and you see what's going on, there's a ton of rocks just floating in the air, like there's something out of Mario Brothers level, Super Mario Brothers. There's just rocks floating in the air. And they don't even try to figure out why it's happening. They've got more important problems. Of course, the ship crashes. 99% of the people survive, but the entire ship is without power. It's without all sensors are down, communications are down, thrusters are down. Obviously, warp is down, impulse is down. They have nothing. They have absolutely nothing on the ship, I guess, besides basic life support. And sickbay seems to be working. After the crash, people are clapping. Lieutenant Dietmar, the woman with the cybernetic implant above her eye, she gets all the credit for saving them. But she's zoned out. Maybe she had a concussion. We don't know what, but she is out of it. And Saru sends her alone to sickbay. The woman can barely walk. You send her with somebody escorts her to sickbay. You don't send a person who's dozed and dazed and doesn't even know what the hell is happening to sickbay alone. That said, she actually does make it to sickbay, so it's not the biggest problem, but I think it was a very questionable command decision to send her to sickbay alone. 2 minutes after that, Saru orders everybody work in pairs because communications are down, which is a sensible and good decision to make. And of course, Saru decides Tilly is with him. Okay, during the crash, Tilly's tricorder or ship, I don't know, before the sensors broke, Tilly got some readings that there were settlements around the planet that had higher oxygen concentrations because the oxygen is a little low. It's bad for humans, but apparently other species might be able to breathe it without oxygen treatments. But she found these man-made structures around the planet that were settlements, and she says, and it's weird, they have what appear to be warp-capable ships, but she's found no dilithium traces. Now, she knows they're 1,000 years in the future, 900 years in the future, at least she's supposed to be. So maybe you would think, well, maybe there's no dilithium. Maybe they found something better than dilithium in 1,000 years, you know? That would be my first guess. But, of course, they're already onto the thing that, later she's going to be like, oh, we have dilithium. And that's, of course, what saves them from being killed later. So here's the problem. The ship is crashed onto a glacier. The ice is already coming over the ship, and they don't have enough of this one mineral on board to repair one of the relays or something. So they scanned the settlement. The settlement has plenty of this mineral. So Saru has decided that him and Tilly, and only him and Tilly, are going to try to go to the settlement and barter to get the mineral they need. Of course, Georgiou comes out, and she, in her, in the timeline of this episode, she just finished fighting with Leland and disintegrating him. And like Tilly's like, you've got some Leland on your boot. And Georgiou is like, what do you mean we have no communications? How are we gonna? And Saru's like, I got it. We're gonna get everything fixed, and me and Tilly are gonna go to this settlement. And Georgiou's like, what makes you think they're gonna be peaceful? She's like, if it was my planet, I'd already have the ship surrounded. And Saru, of course, she makes some good points. Saru completely ignores her and orders her to stay on board. And of course, we all know that that's going to be an ignored order, but that's fine. So Saru and Tilly set out to the settlement. Well, they set out presumably to the settlement, but they're walking across the ice, and Tilly's just chatting away. She's like, I'm sorry, I'm chatting away because I'm nervous. Saru says, it's fine, keep talking. And so she asks Saru, she's like, why did you take me? Why did you pick me? And Saru says, well, I needed an engineer. When did Tilly become an engineer? I mean, I would have guessed she was a science officer. And maybe, just maybe, if Discovery wore, red, blue, and gold uniforms like real Star Trek, I would have known right away if Tilly was in engineering or science. I would have guessed she was in science, but fine. So now Tilly's an engineer now. You could have fooled me. So everybody got injured a lot of people got injured during the crash. Some pretty badly. Sick bay is going crazy. So in sick bay, we get a little touching reunion between Dr. Culber and Stamets. He takes Stamets out of the coma. He says, I wouldn't have done it taking you out of the coma so soon, but we need the bio bed. And Stamets like, what? There's people hurt more than me? And he looks up and there's like it's like a disaster zone. It's like the middle of a war. People are coming, going. I don't know why all these people stayed on the ship, but fine. Now they got to get rid of Stamets. They got to put him in a I don't know, a cellular regeneration chamber or something. Some tech I never heard of before. We've never seen in the original series, of course. So they put him in this thing. They tell him he needs at least one cycle. They don't tell us how long a cycle is, but it would seem within an hour or so he's out of it and he's back in engineering. So fine. Stamets is out of it, even though he just came out of this his cellular regeneration thing. He's at maybe 20% of his brain capacity. And then we get Jet Reno, who, while she seems to have her brain on completely, she suffered severe back pain during the crash landing, to the point it's like looking at, like watching an Anti-Tracker video from 6 months ago before he had his back operation. You can just see the pain that she's in, and I'll give it to her. She plays it well. In fact, this might be an unpopular thing to say, but I would put Jet Reno as the best character in this episode. She is both acting the best in terms of visually letting us see the pain she's in, and she also has the comic relief. And I would say at least 50% of her jokes land. So, you know what? I was actually happy to see Jet Reno. She's probably my favorite character currently alive on the ship. I didn't think I'd be saying that a year ago or whenever we first were introduced to her. But yeah, Jet Reno, good for her. So Jet Reno and Stamets argue about who's going to fix. They found the last, I guess, EPS conduit or whatever that needs to be fixed. It's in the Jeffries tube. For some reason, they don't want to call over an engineer who's perfectly capable of going up the Jeffries tube, or going up the ladder and crawling through a Jeffries tube. So instead, they're going to fight over who's in more pain. And I guess Jet Reno wins. So Stamets reluctantly, and at, like I said, maybe 20% of his mental and physical capacity, climbs up a ladder and goes into a Jeffries tube. And of course, oh, by the way, the ship didn't just crash into a glacier. It crashed into parasitic ice. Yes, ice itself has evolved to, I don't know, to have a life cycle. This is living ice. And we learned through some exposition in a couple minutes, I'll get into it, that the ice gets really bad at night. It's bad during the day, but it gets really bad at night. So now we have to get the ship free before nightfall, or else they'll never get free. Anyway, as this ice is growing on the hull, the ship is bending and twisting, and so the Jeffries tube is kind of throwing Stamets back and forth. He's in terrible pain to the point that now he can't even, he's out of it. So what does Jet Reno do? Does she brave her pain and go up there and save him? Does she call for somebody to go into the Jeffries tube and pull him out and finish it? No. She calls for Dr. Colbert, or Colbert, whatever the hell his name is, Wilson Cruz. She calls for him to come over. So they pull him out of sickbay, where he's presumably treating multiple patients, because one person is stuck in a Jeffries tube. Does Dr. Colbert even go into the Jeffries tube to pull him out or to treat him? No. He just does a teleconference through, there's a flying thingamajiggy, like a drone, in front of Stamets in the Jeffries tube. And, you know, he's talking to Jet Reno on a pad through a Skype video conference. And so Dr. Colbert just comes into the video conference. He doesn't even go treat his husband or patient or whatever he is. Doesn't even go treat him. He just talks to him, and he talks him through what he has to do. Meanwhile, Saru and Tilly walking on the ice, and they see this mysterious figure in the distance. And Saru's like, first contact. Of course, they don't actually make contact. So for what seems to be a prolonged period of time, Saru and Tilly are just following this guy who's in the distance, and then they see him go between some rocks, and he just disappears into a thing of light. And Saru's like, Tilly, I need you to trust me here. And Tilly's like, oh, okay, sure. And they both go into this barrier that just turns them into beams of light. And of course, it happened to be a transporter that then transports them to the entrance of a bar. Of course, that's just what it was. So they go into the bar, and like everybody in the bar, they're all aliens, and they all take out their phasers, and they're actually somewhat reminiscent of. They're not any phaser we've seen, but they're at least recognizable as phasers. They're not arm cannons. And they all take out their phasers and they all point them at Saru and Tilly. And so Saru and Tilly put their hands up, and Saru is like, we're Starfleet officers. And they're like, prove it. And they don't have any way of proving it. And then Tilly starts reciting, it's like Starfleet Code 265.7. A Starfleet officer will always act as becoming of a Starfleet officer. And she's like, and so that's why we're not, crying scared because, unidentified people have phasers to our faces. And that was it. That was all they needed. So they unpower their phasers, and apparently these people are brothers. And he's like, my brother always said Starfleet would come one day. And like, yeah, I can't believe that. He's like, you were right. The Starfleet finally came. So they want to know about Saru, but Saru has ordered the crew and Tilly not to talk about where they're from. For some reason, apparently there's no temporal prime directive yet, but Saru just feels that there should be a temporal prime directive. And he also feels that even though they're from the past, it would be too easy to tell them that. So for reasons unknown, he refuses to tell people they're from the past. Fine. They just say that it's a classic ship because Tilly brought the broken piece of technology with her that they need fixed. Now, they were coming to get a raw mineral that presumably they were going to bring back to Discovery, and engineering was going to have to use it to create the piece they need. But instead, Tilly, for reasons, brought this broken piece of the ship. She puts it down, and one guy's like, oh, I can fix that for you, no problem. Of course, though, before they would talk to them, they needed to have something to barter with. And Tilly's like, we have dilithium. And so, that got their attention because Tilly had scanned the settlement and so there was no dilithium in their ships. So she figured they would need dilithium. And so Saru's like, yeah, we can barter. We got dilithium. So that was, then they became friendly when they found out they had dilithium. So this guy's like, I haven't seen something this old in forever. How old is your ship? And so Tilly just says, well, it's a classic. And Tilly's watching the guy fix it, and he's using that same matter that we've seen. I thought it was the holodeck from last episode, but it's actually, he calls it a programmable matter or some type of matter, programmable matter. He's like, it's programmable matter. He thinks she's seen it before. She's never seen it, but she plays like she has. She's like, oh, I've seen it. I was just testing you. You passed. So he fixes her piece really quick, and they're like, oh shit, the courier's on his way. You got to go. And like, what's the courier? He's like, he's the guy who brings us everything we can't grow, which is basically everything. He's a bad guy. You can tell he's a bad guy. They're like, please guys, just leave. And Saru's like, but we didn't give you your dilithium. They're like, we don't care. Just go out the back, please. And of course they don't. And the courier comes in, and I don't know if I was supposed to recognize this actor. I didn't. I'm sorry. But you could tell he was a bad guy. He comes in, and he's got like maybe 2 or 3 other people with him, and they're all coming in. And he's the bad guy. Of course, he knows everything. He's like, I see the ship crashed. It's the USS Discovery. He's like, we don't have any record of it in our database. And he knows, he's like, our ship picked up graviton waves. He's like, do you know how that happens? And they won't say it. They don't say it out loud, but Saru knows that he knows that they know that they're time travelers. The brothers in the bar, they don't know they're time travelers yet. But this guy, this bad dude does. So then he finds out that the brother helps them fix the ship, and apparently, I guess, helping time travelers is a big no-no. Although he didn't know he was helping time travelers. Saru even says, "I forced him to do it in a desperate attempt to try to take the blame." But the bad guy shoots one of the brothers, the true believer brother, in the chest with this weird phaser for an extended period of time. Apparently, it's a weapon designed to inflict pain more than kill, although it can kill. And so he leaves it going, and it just eats away at his chest. And in the very excruciating death, we see the brother be killed. So the guy's basically like, I'm gonna take all your dilithium. You have no say here to Saru. Saru is like saying, no, we can, Saru's opening negotiations with him. And so he's like, well, we got to send Tilly out to go bring the dilithium back. And he's like, oh, but don't be aware of the parasitic ice. He's like, yeah, the ice gets really ill-tempered at night. The ice could kill. I've seen it kill people. I see what happens when it gets down their throat. And basically they're saying she doesn't have enough time to get back to the ship before nightfall. He's like, well, she better. She's like, use explosives if you have to. And he's ready to kick her out to go into the night to die. I don't know how he'd get his dilithium then, but whatever. And then just at that moment, one of his guys brings in Georgiou, who of course ignored Saru's orders and was watching them. And so the bad guy's like, oh, one woman was your lookout team? And he's like, you really are stupid. Of course, it's Georgiou. And within a few seconds, her and a little bit of Saru, they take out all the bad guys except the one main bad guy. All the other bad guys they're killed. They're killed. They have no problems killing his 4 or 5 bodyguards or whatever they were, cohorts. They boom, killed. Phaser, and Saru's ganglia, the darts. They kill them all. Except the main bad guy. The main bad guy. He gets mercy. They don't kill him. All of his sub cohorts, they all die. But for some reason, they let this main guy live because they're Starfleet. And it's the Starfleet thing to do. It's the Starfleet thing to do to let the main bad guy live and kill all of his underlings. Murder all of his underlings. But the main bad guy, he gets mercy. The main bad guy orders one of the brothers at the bar to shoot Saru and Tilly. He says, or I'm going to watch your children die. I'm going to destroy your oxygen concentrators, and I will watch your children die gasping for air. Okay? If somebody is threatening my family, you're goddamn well right, I'm going to shoot them. Saru had the ability to kill him. Tilly had the ability to kill him. Georgiou had the ability to kill him. And the bartender, whose children the guy just threatened to kill, had the ability to shoot the guy. And all 4 of them let him walk out of the bar. In fact, they not only let him walk out of the bar, he says, but I won't make it one night on the surface. They give him Tilly's pack, survival pack. They give him Tilly's survival pack. They just killed 4 or 5 of his cohorts. This guy just threatened to murder the family of the bartender. And in something that, I'm sorry to get political, that even most liberal Democrat couldn't come up with, they decide, let's give mercy to the main bad guy, right? It's okay if we kill all the Nazis, but Hitler we have to take alive. And then we just let him walk out the door. Nothing stops him from going out the door, hiding in a shadow, waiting for 20 minutes and coming back in, presumably going to his ship, right? Everybody's supposed to have personal transporters, right? He could just walk out the door, go to his ship, get 10 more guns. Who knows how many people could be on his ship and come back? No, he could use his ship to blow up the oxygen concentrator that he promised he would do. No, they just let him walk out the door for no reason. It boggles the mind. It boggles the mind. It hurt. It hurt to see this happen. God damn it, I was begging the TV, somebody just shoot this guy. You know he's going to come back. I mean, this is a worse move than letting Khan go to a planet. At least Khan's planet had no technology. There was no way he was ever going to get off that planet. Okay? This is just letting Khan walk out the front door. Don't come back here. You hear? Yeah. It was, I'm sorry, this scene alone drags down the entire episode. I do have to give the episode some credit. Jet Reno might have saved this episode. Her acting and her comedy actually worked. It worked for me. I'll give it some credit. So, at the end of the episode, well, basically, the bar people find out that they were time travelers. Of course, the brother's dead, but now the other brother, now that he knows that they're Starfleet, he's all in on them. And so he gives Tilly and Saru a personal transporter. He says, you guys better get back to your ship. And so they transport instantly back to Discovery. We don't see it happen. They just cut to a scene where Tilly and Saru are back on the Discovery, and they've got the fixed part. They put the part in. All the lights come on. The ship has power again, and they're on the bridge. They're trying to get off. The ice has covered the ship, and Dietmar is back. Dietmar, whatever her name is, the woman with the implant, is back at the navigation controls, even though she's still out of it. And she's like, we've never, the ship isn't designed for this. Saru's like, I know the ship's not designed for this. Just do it anyway. So the ship, the Discovery, with full power, is still not able to crack out of the ice. It's going back and forth. It doesn't look good. It looks like Discovery is going to be trapped forever. It's going to take them a couple of minutes before they get shields and weapons. But for whatever reason, I guess the ice was getting so thick, they decided to start moving before shields and weapons even come on. So after 2 or 3 minutes of trying to get through the ice, we get, enemy vessel above. Because this whole time, there was this pretense that his competitors, the bad guy's competitors, the courier's competitors, knew about this and that they would be coming looking for them. So they presume that this is another bad guy. It says, and in fact, they said enemy vessel directly overhead. And at this point, even if you were the dumbest monkey in the circus, you knew exactly what was going to happen. It wasn't an enemy vessel. The tractor beam comes on, and it pulls the Discovery out of the ice, making the entire story up to this point useless, because no matter what happened on Discovery up to this point, the ship with the tractor beam would have came along and tractored Discovery out of the ice to begin with. So this whole story was for naught. The tractor beam comes up, and of course the bridge is like, we're being hailed by the enemy vessel. And then they say, oh, okay, weapons just came back online, shields just came back online. So they ask Saru, what do you want to do? We have weapons, or we have weapons, oh, we can talk to them. We can listen to them. The hell. Like there was any question as to what Saru would do. Like for even a second, Saru was going to be like, yeah, let's just fire on the enemy vessel without talking to them because. So of course they turn on communications, thankfully. And what do we see? You know what we see. You know what we see. You already know it. You had to have known it. It's Michael Burnham. And she's got a new hairstyle. And she's like, oh my God, I've been searching for you guys for a year. A year. So Discovery came a year after Michael. How does Discovery land on the planet a year after Michael closed the portal? Michael closed the time portal a year ago. How does Discovery come out of a portal that was closed? Don't think too hard about it. They certainly didn't. I can promise you that. Nobody thought, how does Discovery come out of a time portal that's closed? We're never going to figure it out. But they did. And Michael Burnham has hair now, and she's like, welcome to the future, and yay, yay, yay. And next time on Discovery, we see that Michael Burnham and the crew physically reunite. At the end of this episode, they were still on their own ships, but next week, we see Booker and Michael Burnham come on board the Discovery, and it looks like next week they're heading to Earth. They said that they haven't been to Earth in a while, and yeah, so it looks like next week they're headed to Earth. This was a bit of a nutso episode. It was better than last week. I rated last week one anti-tracker out of 10. This week, I feel like, I don't know, it's an anti-tracker and a half out of 10. But for the sake of numerals, for the sake of counting, I will give this episode a 3 out of 10. 3 out of 10. It's not the worst Discovery episode ever made. But man, it has all the hallmarks of what's terrible about Discovery. It's inconsistent with itself. It's inconsistent with prior episodes of Discovery. It's inconsistent within its own episode of Discovery. And at the end of the day, everything was for nothing. It would have turned out the exact same way, even if Saru and Tilly and the bridge crew just decided to sit there under the ice and wait for Michael Burnham to save them. Because that's what Michael Burnham always does. Michael Burnham has to save the day all the time. So they should have just sat there and played video games until Michael Burnham came and saved them. And you know what? It wasn't even 24 hours they were crashed. Michael Burnham was there to save them. Nobody would have died, and everybody would have been happy. That's it. It's the Michael Burnham Show, and episode 3, 1 week from today. Qapla all, thank you. If you've enjoyed this, please subscribe. I'm losing subscribers. I mean, I lose them, I get them, I lose them, I get them. YouTube is doing its thing. Subscribe, share the video. It would be great. It would be wonderful if you could share the video. If you check out my other channel, BirdoPray5X, you can get to it on BirdoPray5.com. Leave a comment. Let me know what you think. If you think there's something I can improve, let me know. And otherwise, Qapla all, and Bird out.